Have you ever stood outside on a warm summer night and watched a firefly blink in the darkness and wondered if it was somehow noticing you too? If one has ever floated close to your face and flashed just once before drifting away, you may have felt as though it was trying to tell you something. In a surprising way, it actually was. That tiny pulse of light is not random decoration, and it is not simply a beautiful accident of nature. Every flash is part of a conversation, every glow carries information, and for millions of years fireflies have been sending messages through the night long before humans built cities or invented language. When we see a firefly light up in the dark, it often feels magical because the light appears so suddenly. One moment there is only darkness, and the next there is a floating green lantern hanging over the grass. But inside that tiny insect, an extraordinary process is taking place. Unlike a light bulb which creates heat as well as light, a firefly produces what scientists call cold light. Inside its abdomen, special chemicals react with oxygen and release energy almost entirely as light. Very little is wasted as heat. In fact, fireflies are among the most efficient light producers on Earth. If you have ever watched one blinking above a backyard lawn on a humid evening, you are seeing one of nature's most remarkable biological inventions in action. But the real mystery is not how the light is made. The mystery is why. The answer begins with love. Most firefly flashes are part of a search for a mate. Male fireflies typically fly through the darkness, sending out specific flash patterns. Each species has its own timing and rhythm, almost like a unique code. One species may flash twice quickly. Another may glow for a longer moment before disappearing into the dark. Another may create a repeating sequence that lasts several seconds. Imagine standing in a crowded room where everyone is speaking different languages. Somehow you are trying to find the one person who speaks yours. That is essentially what a firefly is doing every night. A male drifts through the darkness, flashing his signal over and over. Somewhere below, a female waits in the grass or on a leaf. She watches carefully. If she sees a flash from a male of her own species, she responds with a flash of her own. What happens next is astonishingly precise. The female often waits a specific amount of time before answering. Sometimes the delay is only a few seconds, sometimes less. That timing is part of the message. The male recognizes it immediately and changes direction toward her. If you have ever seen two fireflies blinking back and forth across a garden, they may have been carrying out a conversation as important to them as exchanging names would be to us. In a sense, the male is saying, "Here I am," and the female is answering, "I see you." The closer he gets, the more accurate the exchange becomes. Flash after flash guides him through the darkness until eventually they meet. But not every flash means the same thing. Some fireflies use light to warn predators. Their bodies contain chemicals that make them unpleasant to eat. Birds, spiders, and other hunters quickly learn that glowing insects are often a bad meal. Picture a young bird spotting its first firefly. It snaps it up expecting dinner. Instead, it gets a mouthful of bitter chemicals and a lesson it will remember. The next time it sees that familiar flash floating over the grass, it is more likely to leave the insect alone. So in some situations, the flash is effectively saying, "Do not eat me." Nature rarely wastes an opportunity to communicate. Then there are the fireflies that take deception to an entirely different level. Certain species have learned to imitate the flash patterns of other fireflies. A female may copy the response signal of another species and lure an unsuspecting male closer. He believes he has found a potential mate. Instead, he becomes dinner. Scientists sometimes call these insects femme fatale fireflies because they use false signals to attract prey. It is one of the most remarkable examples of mimicry in the insect world. Imagine hearing what sounds like a friendly voice calling your name from across a dark field, only to discover it was a trap. That is essentially what happens to those unfortunate males. The more researchers study fireflies, the more they discover that these flashes contain layers of information. Brightness matters, timing matters, duration matters. Even tiny differences can completely change the meaning of the message. And yet something even more remarkable happens in certain parts of the world. Instead of flashing independently, some fireflies synchronize. Thousands of individuals begin blinking together in perfect rhythm. Entire forests pulse with waves of light. Trees appear to breathe. Riverbanks shimmer as though covered in living stars. For a long time, scientists struggled to understand how this happened. There is no leader directing the display. No firefly stands at the front giving instructions. Each insect simply watches the flashes around it and adjusts its own timing slightly. Over time, the group falls into step. If you have ever seen a crowd begin clapping in unison after a concert, you already understand the basic principle. Small adjustments create collective order. The result is one of the most beautiful natural spectacles on Earth. And perhaps that beauty is why humans often imagine that fireflies are flashing for us. It is easy to feel chosen when one drifts close and glows directly in front of your eyes. It feels personal, but in reality the firefly is usually communicating with its own world. It is searching, responding, warning, navigating relationships that have existed for countless generations. Yet that does not make the encounter less meaningful. In fact, it may make it more meaningful. Because for a brief moment we are witnessing a conversation that was already happening long before we arrived. We are not the center of the story, we are simply fortunate enough to overhear it. And if you enjoy discovering hidden stories like this one, the kind unfolding quietly in backyards, forests, and fields all around us, consider subscribing to Global Wild Origins. There is an entire world of animal mysteries waiting just beyond the edge of everyday life. The most beautiful part of the firefly story may be what it reveals about communications itself. We often think of language as words, sentences, voices, but life has invented countless ways to exchange information. Wolves use scent, birds use songs, trees send chemical warnings through the air, and fireflies speak with flashes of living light. A pulse in the darkness can mean I am here, it can mean I found you, it can mean stay away, it can even mean danger. All of that meaning carried by a glow lasting less than a second. So the next time you find yourself outside on a warm evening and a firefly drifts across your path, pay attention to that tiny flash. What seems like a simple blink is actually part of an ancient language written in light. You may never know exactly which message that particular firefly intended to send, but you can know that it was speaking to someone. And for a moment under the darkening sky, you became the witness to a conversation older than memory and brighter than its size could ever suggest.